Hi, I'm Gary, and this is episode 288 of EV Musings, a podcast about renewables, electric vehicles, and things that are interesting to electric vehicle owners. On the show today, we'll be looking at people who are considering buying electric and what they think the issues.
What's the point of getting a car that can give me realistically 150 miles? Well, range anxiety's gone because the Polestar I had could do easily that.
The EV Musings podcast is sponsored by ZapMap, the go-to app for EV drivers, helping you find and pay for public charging with confidence.
Our main topic of discussion today is prospective EV buyers. Picture the scene. It's 2008. You're a cell phone user who's been buying Nokias for several years. They've gone from being the larger fixed antenna models with small screens and even smaller keyboards to being the smaller, indestructible versions with slightly larger LCD screens and keyboards that sort of work better. You can text, albeit using multiple clicks of a single key to rotate through a set of letters. If you wanted to type the word hello, for example, you would press 443355555666. And yet somehow we all got on with it and everybody was okay with it. But several months earlier, this tech bro based in Cupertino, California, got on stage with his blue jeans and a black turtleneck sweater, and he introduced this thing called the iPhone. It had no keyboard. It had a full-size screen. It had these things called apps, and it was over twice as expensive as anything else on the market, at least. Here's what Microsoft boss Steve Ballmer said when he heard about it.
He pulls out this iPhone. What was your first reaction when you saw that?
$500 fully subsidized with a plan? I said, that is the most expensive phone in the world, and it doesn't appeal to business customers because it doesn't have a keyboard, which makes it not a very good email machine. Now, it may sell very well or not. We have our strategy. We've got great Windows mobile devices in the market today. You can get a Motorola Q phone now for $99. It's a very capable machine. It'll do music. It'll do internet. It'll do email. It'll do instant messaging. So I kind of look at that and I say, well, I like our strategy. I like it a lot.
Now, you'll note how he was dismissive of something new that could have been much better. He also trotted out existing products that Microsoft had, which he believed had all the functionality you would ever need in a phone. It had the internet, music, instant messaging, email, etc. Now, he also trots out the price of a much cheaper solution, $99. In other words, why would you go for something new and unproven when you can stick with what you know and pay less? Sound familiar? Now, on top of that, you couldn't just buy the iPhone. You had to buy a data package with it. And that was to allow you to do the things that you needed to do with the apps. Oh, and the apps themselves were fairly simple at the time and quite limited in what they did. And you had to buy them individually from an app store that was accessible through the phone, which meant that you had to load up your credit card details somehow onto the phone to allow payments to occur. Furthermore, you could type like you do with a typewriter, but you couldn't copy and paste text. That functionality didn't exist at the time. For many people, myself included, there was a large amount of hesitation about actually getting one of these phones. Why would I pay all that money for them? What was this data package I needed? How much would it all cost? All I need is something that allows me to make calls and be reachable wherever I am. There were many, many questions. Lots of people, Steve Ballmer included, thought they would never take off and it would wither and die on the vine. Now, we're a little over 18 years later, and I bet you don't know a single person over the age of about 6 without a smartphone. And what's more, I wouldn't mind betting that you're probably watching or listening to this episode on your own smartphone, aren't you? Go on, admit it. That's a hell of a success story, right? But what's this got to do with electric cars? Well, I want to cast your mind back a few moments to the bit where I said, for many people, myself included, there was a large amount of hesitation about actually getting one of these new iPhones. And that's the theme of today's episode, hesitation. I think that's where we are with electric vehicles at the moment. There are thousands of them on the roads in the UK and millions globally. They are a demonstrably better product than internal combustion engine vehicles. But there's still a large amount of hesitation about buying them. There are still people out there who might be considering going electric, but for whatever reason have either not taken the plunge or have gone for something in the middle, such as a plug-in hybrid. So why is that? What factors are playing in people's minds when they hesitate? Is it societal? Is it financial? Is it because they've heard misinformation. Today, we're looking into this, and to help me discuss this, I'm joined by Greg Hughes. Now, a couple of things to note while listening to this conversation. Greg is someone that I've worked with off and on in my non-EV life, so when he makes reference to that, you'll understand what he means. His partner is also on a job search, which may or may not end up with them relocating to mainland Europe. So when he makes reference to that, you'll understand why. Anyway, here's Greg. We're going to talk today about the experience of buying an electric vehicle, or at least considering buying an electric vehicle. Now, I know you and I have had conversations, and I've bent your ear over many a day about the benefits of electric vehicles. And I know that you've had a look at these, you've done some test drives, and I'm going to talk about the test drive what I want to what are you driving at the moment, just so that your listeners know?
2006 Mini, Cooper S, no suspension, clapped out, brakes every 2 weeks.
Yeah. So it's costing you a little bit in maintenance.
Yeah. And concern and anxiety. And every time I get in it, I think, will it get me to the end?
Okay. So
even today.
So at some point, you're going to say to yourself, well, that needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
And of course, you've then got two options. You can stay with what you know, which is fossil fuel, petrol or diesel, or you can make the transition over to electric. So has that sort of conversation played through in your mind?
Yeah.
And how did that go?
I could see no reason to not get an electric.
Wonderful.
I've done quite a lot of research by looking at online videos and test driving at an event with you in November.
I think so, yeah.
Test driven at garages. Went to there used to be an establishment at Milton Keynes where you could go and test drive from an array of them.
The Electric Vehicle Experience Centre.
Yeah, I did that 3 years ago.
Ooh, wow.
Drove a Tesla there as well on a separate visit. Tesla invited me, and hired a Polestar just to get the feel of how it would go.
Okay.
Because it was a long run and I didn't fancy doing it in the Mini. So all in all, very positive experiences, good research giving me half decent knowledge, and at each step trying to knock away the doubts and the obstacles to buying one.
So let's talk about those doubts, because there has been research done that says that there are people who consider that they would like to go to electric, usually hit a couple of things that are barriers. And one of them is going to be the cost barrier, or they're way too expensive. The other one is going to be, well, I don't know how long the battery's going to last. There's also going to be things like depreciation and, is the charging infrastructure there? Have you had those concerns?
Yeah. I think the first concern was range anxiety. What's the point of getting a car that can give me realistically 150 miles? Range anxiety is gone because the Polestar I had could do easily that. We test drove cars that were perfectly capable of doing 250. But my time of life, I'm not going to drive for more than 250 miles in one stretch without a break.
Yeah, we know something about that, don't we?
I just don't have attention span. My legs go dead. I need a coffee. Range anxiety is gone. Cost, sure, you can get really expensive cars, but I don't want a really expensive car. I've had them in the past, and I don't really feel the need for one now. I'd be more than happy with something at the low end of the market, but with an electric car, you get astounding technology. And going from a 2006 Mini to a new electric car feels like stepping into the enterprise. What's an Insta going to cost on a contract?
A
couple hundred quid?
Yeah.
250, 300?
Yeah.
That's fine. And in my line of business, that could be, realistically, that could be a good day's filming. 1 day's filming a month. It's fine. Depreciation, if it's on a contract, I don't care. I just give it back. Battery life cycle, again, if it's on a contract, give it back. I don't care. If at some point I ever buy one outright, which I find highly unlikely, I've seen loads of videos with very high mileage, relatively old electric vehicles, like old Teslas, and their batteries are capable of 60, 70, 80% of their previously new capacity and still work perfectly well.
In fact, you'll probably find it's higher than that. 80 to 90%, depending on how it's been recharged. The question I would ask is, have you considered buying secondhand?
Yes.
Excellent. How did that go?
I haven't bought one yet. So access to information is the key one, right?
Yes.
Because I've seen YouTube videos of motoring journalists claiming things like, I bought Tesla for £4,000. but it's through trade-only deals, auctions, and purchases from contract agents. If I get access to one like that, I'd buy one.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be brilliant. My particular constraint at the moment is there's no point in buying an electric vehicle for the UK if I'm going to be living in Italy or Austria. That's unique to me.
Yeah.
There's a good chance I'll be somewhere else by the end of the year. Once I'm there, I'll then go and look at buying an electric vehicle in that country.
What are your thoughts on the current state of the infrastructure?
My experience of that through the road trip to Durham and back in September was it can be really expensive to use. And one of the justifications for getting an electric vehicle is to reduce the cost of battery. So relying on just turn up and pay a premium price for charging doesn't sit well with, I need this to be as cheap as possible. There are ways around that. You can pay for the access to the Tesla network.
Subscription?
Yeah, when I did the subscription for a month, I think it was £9 or £11, something like that. And because of the usage I made over the 4-day hire, saved money against just rocking up. The charging stations I used were desolate, out of the way. And one of them I had to drive some way off the A1, essentially park in a car park in a field for half an hour with no access to toilets or coffees, which is it's a different experience than going to a service station, but it's fine. Plan ahead. I ended up in that particular location because I didn't particularly plan ahead, and there were better alternatives further up the route that I just chose to ignore because I was stupid.
So, assuming you get an electric car and you're staying in the UK, do you have off-street parking where you live?
Yeah.
Okay. So you will be able to get a home charger.
Yeah.
You'll be able to take advantage of time of day tariffs and cheap overnight electricity.
Yeah, exactly.
So that obviously is going to bring down the cost of running a vehicle tremendously.
Yeah.
Really. Let's talk a little bit about the misinformation that's out there when it comes to electric vehicles, because you can come to me and you can ask me, Gary, I've heard X, Y, and Z, and I'll give you the facts. I'll give you what the reality is. But there are a number of individuals, organizations, etc., out there who are not quite as forthcoming with the truth.
Yeah.
And like to kind of muddy the waters.
It's either vested interest or journalistic reputation.
Absolutely. Have you seen any of that and thought, this could be a concern to me? I wonder whether it's actually accurate. Or do you think, no, I know that it's bullshit, basically?
Yeah, it's bullshit. So access to good quality, reliable, reputable information online, YouTube or publication websites is easy. So when you see bullshit like range anxiety, these cars won't go more than 150 miles without a charge, and then you're stuck home. Your partner will be in it and they'll be stuck in the middle of nowhere. So honestly, I have no qualms about buying, using, and giving back at the end of a lease, because I watch half-decent YouTube channels living electric. Probably 11. Fantastic.
Yeah.
You. I'm not going to blow your trumpet, but you. Yeah, it just provides information that is quantifiably accurate. I speak to people, we have a similar line of business. I speak to people in crowd holding, old people like me. Have you gone electric yet? Are you thinking of changing your car? What sort of, I'll get another Jag. I'll stick to fossil fuels. And they trot out a whole list of, for them, plausible excuses as why they shouldn't get an electric car. And I'm thinking, but none of those are accurate. You've fallen for the Daily Mail narrative that this is an unsustainable, overly expensive, unreliable technology. It's just rubbish. If they could, I think you've said this in the past, but I know that Robert Llewellyn has said this. The best way of getting people converted to electric vehicles is just sit them in one and drive them. Yeah. My first experience was that private invitation from Tesla to go to Milton Keynes. It was amazing. I'm not entirely sure why it's taken, that was over 3 years ago now, why it's taken that long till now for me to get close to buying or leasing an electric vehicle. I guess the Mini keeps going, but that's because I keep fiddling around with it and mending it. If we ever get to the stage where we live in Turin or Salzburg or somewhere lovely, it will be Insta or Tesla, but an EV5 or something like that.
In fact, let's talk a little bit about the test drives, because you've talked about the Tesla one. Now, I know you and I were at an Everything Electric event last year.
Yeah.
Business Day, business to business day, I think it was.
It was.
And you were able to take advantage of some of the vehicles there.
Yeah.
What did you actually test drive? Remind me.
Cyberster.
Yeah.
MG's, is it the IM5 and the IM6?
One of those, yeah.
We did Insta and EV9.
Kias, yeah.
Yeah. What else did we do? Did we do an EV5?
Was it an EV5? Was that out at that point? Possibly.
What was the souped-up one that had jet engine emulation? Which scared the living daylights out of me.
You're talking about the one that had the big red button on the steering wheel, yeah,
on
with the noise and the gear.
But also the racing driver co-pilot.
Yes, the Hyundai Ioniq 5.
That was very cool. So it was a really busy day of test drives.
Yes.
In fact, apart from attending and getting a coffee for the first half hour and listening to a lecture, waiting for you to turn up, the day was entirely test drives.
Fantastic.
It was brilliant.
Yeah. After doing that, if you say you've kind of settled on the Insta as the potential one, because
one of your colleagues on the day said, "Don't get the Insta. Wait till competitors come up with a similar like offering. But because they'll be 6 months further down the track, will be better."
Yeah.
So the rate of change of technology for each iteration is like a leap forward.
It is, but do you think it's going to fall into the same trap that we had with personal computers, which is, there's this great one now, but if I wait 6 months, but of course 6 months later, if you wait 6 months on top of that, you're going to have to draw a line and say,
complete. So at some point I will draw that line, and that'll probably be within the first couple of months of wherever we're going to be living.
Okay.
Because we will need a transport.
Yes.
And if by some strange, weird twist of fate we end up living somewhere else in the UK, I'll just jump into the EV market then.
Just remind the listeners which area you're living in at the moment.
Live in Oxford.
Yeah, Oxford. Excellent. Do you think, I mean, notwithstanding what you've just said about potentially moving abroad, do you think if you do move to electric, you'll then start to look at the wider ecosystem of, well, hang on, if I put solar panels on, I can get free charging, and then I might get a battery because I take advantage of the overnight rates and that. Is that something that you're actively thinking about, or is it well up on the back burner?
On the back burner at the moment.
Yeah.
If we do move abroad, there'll be an element of not feeling particularly settled. There's a good chance that for the first 6 months we'll rent anyway.
Yeah.
And so solar panels and batteries won't be in the equation.
Indeed.
And depending on how secure and settled we are in that new location, whether we take to it or whether there's a job change further down the line and we move after 18 months, that may act against us making infrastructure investments in whatever house we have. If we get to a stage where we're settled and we know we've got a house for, say, we're going to be here for 5 years, then additional infrastructure items like a battery would be brilliant. Yeah, so I've got no aversion to the technology and installing it and learning how to use it properly, being slightly geeky about the numbers and the wiring connections. And I'd like that idea. That side of things appeals to me.
Yeah.
It's on the back burner at the moment just because there's a lack of certainty about where we'll be and how long we'll be there.
Yeah. That makes sense. Is there somebody who's watching this who is in the same position you were in X number of months or years ago, which is, I've got a fossil fuel car, it's coming to the end of its life. I can either buy another fossil fuel car or I can go to electric. Bit of advice, what would you recommend that they do, knowing that there's this misinformation out there, but knowing that there are also these genuine issues that people have regarding range anxiety and all that sort of stuff? What would you advise them?
Go to a dealership. Go and find out your nearest Hyundai or MG dealership and get behind a car. I'm sure they'd be more than happy to let you have a test drive. It's their business. That's what they want. Within a mile or so of a test drive, you'll be convinced. Honestly, you will. I know it's preaching to the converted, but they're fabulous. From the very first time of getting into a Tesla, where it felt like science fiction, and then I test drove a Nero years ago, 2-3 years ago.
Fabulous cars.
They were brilliant. And then neighbours and friends got electric vehicles, and they got Teslas. And to a man and woman, they all thought, why haven't we done this sooner? What was the reason we stopped? And they all had Jags or big Mercedes, petrol-driven things, and we'll never go back.
It almost sounds like there's a level of fear.
Yeah.
There's a barrier that needs to be overcome. And if you can just pluck up enough courage to vault that barrier, there's a whole new world.
And I think it's less to do with information, because people can read it and rationalize it and intellectualize it against it. But the physical experience of sitting in one and driving it, even for a short period of time, is so joyful. It genuinely is a lovely experience. That converts people. And it converts those that are passengers. I took my son to Durham in the Polestar, and he thought it was fabulous. Smooth and quiet and comfortable, things to play with, electric heated seats. Did we have them in the back? No, we didn't. But he thought it was the most comfortable. We used to have an enormous Mercedes, which was plush and leathery, and he thought the Polestar was better.
Well, I think that's probably a good point to draw this conversation to a close, unless you've got anything else you'd like the viewers and the listeners to know.
No, I think it's probably safe to say stop and cut.
So a couple of takeaways. Firstly, Greg came into this with a fairly open mind. He wasn't entirely sure he wanted an EV, but he could recognize the benefits of owning one. The fears that he had that caused him to hesitate, range anxiety, infrastructure, etc., they were allayed because he had someone he knew who'd been through this and could help answer all the questions that he had. That's me, by the way. Greg recognized that there are still people out there in a similar situation to him who would benefit from an electric vehicle, but who haven't yet taken the plunge. Although I know of at least 2 mutual acquaintances in that situation who are well along the path. One is currently looking in detail at secondhand electric vehicles. The other has just taken delivery of a brand new MG 5S, which both he and his wife love. After we'd stopped recording, Greg told me that the Mini he currently has, that he made reference to, which he bought for about £3,000 8 years ago, has cost him almost £12,000 in repairs and about the same in fuel. Now, for context, that's 3 years of PCP payments on a brand new EV and around 686,000 miles worth of electricity at 7 pence a kilowatt hour with an efficiency of 4 miles per kilowatt hour. Well, we're thinking about. So in closing, it's worth remembering the statistics I quote constantly on this show and which Greg referenced in our discussion. The vast majority of people you know have never ridden in an electric vehicle, and an even larger majority have never driven one. They hear lots of misinformation, disinformation, and misleading advice in both the mainstream media and social media. They hear a lot of the old tropes that might have been true many years ago, but are no longer true, and they hesitate. But just like the iPhone in 2007, the groundswell of people who get it and understand that it's a better product than the incumbent will start to move the needle when it comes to electric vehicles. So what sort of hesitancy do you have when it comes to EVs? Let me know. info@evmusings.com. I hope you enjoyed listening to today's show. It was put together with the help of Greg Hughes.
The EV Musings podcast is sponsored by ZapMap, the go-to app for EV drivers, helping you find and pay for public charging with confidence. ZapMap is free to download and use with subscription plans for enhanced features such as using ZapMap in car, on CarPlay or Android Auto, and discounted charging across thousands of charge points.
If you have any thoughts, comments, criticisms, or other general messages to pass on to me, I can be reached at info@evmusings.com. And on the socials, I'm on Blue Sky at evmusings.bsky.social. I'm also on Instagram at evmusings, where I post short videos and podcast extracts regularly. So why not follow me there? Thanks to everyone who supports me through Patreon on the monthly basis and through coffee.com on an ad hoc one. If you enjoyed this episode, why not buy me a coffee? Go to coffee.com/evmusings and you can do just that. ko-fi.com/evmusings. Takes Apple Pay too. Now, regular listeners will know about my 2 ebooks. So you've gone electric, and so you've gone renewable. First one of those has had a recent update. You'll see it with a bright red image on the front, just like I'm showing on the screen here. Both of those are 99p each or equivalent, and you can get them on the Amazon Kindle store. Check out the links in the show notes for more information, as well as a link to my regular EV Musings newsletter and associated articles. Now, I know you're probably driving or walking or jogging or in the shower or washing the car, but if you can remember and you enjoyed this episode, drop a review in iTunes, please. Really helps me out. I did go in and have a look recently at some of the most recent reviews. Thank you very much for those who took time to do that for me. If you've reached this part of the podcast and are still listening, thank you. Why not let me know you've got to this point by messaging me at musingsev.bsky.social with the words, "He who hesitates is lost." Hashtag if you know, you know, nothing else. Thanks, as always, to my co-founder, Simon. You know, he has a short list of qualities that need to be in his ideal mode of transport. Custom-made electric unicycle.
Smooth and quiet and comfortable, things to play with, electric heated seats.
Thanks for listening. Bye.